What if the source of your anxiety isn't the world but the way you see it? What if peace isn't something you search for but something you awaken within? And what if the ancient Stoics already gave us them a pony you've simply forgotten to follow? In the quiet stillness of early dawn, where night's final whisper fades into the first breath of morning, we're gifted a rare moment. A space where reflection meets intention. Here, we don't just begin another day, we step into it with purpose. Guided by the enduring wisdom of Stoic philosophy, today we embark on a journey not merely to exist, but to live fully, freely, and fiercely grounded in reason. Let's begin. Part 1. The power of the present mind. Life can be difficult, sometimes quietly, sometimes brutally. But in those early moments before sunrise, when the world hovers between the last whispers of night and the first clarity of day, something sacred happens. We arrive at a crossroads, a silent moment between action and reflection. And in that stillness lies potential. Here, with nothing but the breath in our lungs and the pulse of being alive, we begin a journey. Not one of escape, but of alignment. A journey rooted in the ancient wisdom of Stoic philosophy. As you stand at the threshold of this day, take a moment. Breathe. Feel. Recognize the miracle in the very act of living. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them." That's not just poetic thought. It's a reminder that you are a participant in something vast, something beautiful. So, let us walk together through the timeless tenets of Stoicism. Let's weave the profound into the practical and explore how ancient philosophy can cultivate a life of calm, virtue, and deep emotional resilience. Seneca once said, "Whatever can happen at any time can happen today." The Stoics didn't believe in bad luck. They believed in perspective. You're not unlucky, you're simply ungrateful. Because being alive, breathing, experiencing anything at all is already a rare and powerful privilege. And so, to call yourself unfortunate is not just a mistake in judgment, it's a form of surrender, a laziness of the will. The Stoics didn't wait for fate to smile on them. They prepared, they trained. They took disciplined action every single day because they understood luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. They didn't try to control life, they trained their minds to use life. Every challenge, every hardship, every unexpected twist was fuel. They didn't just accept fate, they worked with it. That's what it means to think like a true Stoic. You have something in you more miraculous than anything outside of you. And yet, in the modern world, we've learned to follow our feelings like leaves in the wind. The Stoics would be horrified. Because feelings are not in charge, you are. Your rational mind is your greatest tool, your clearest weapon, your quiet strength. And to abandon ego, let passion take the wheel, is to live like a slave to impulse. To be ruled by reason is to be free. When you really stop and reflect on how fleeting each moment is, it becomes painfully clear. Letting stress dominate you, letting anger or anxiety own your day, that's a tragedy. That's a waste of your most precious, irreplaceable resource, time. So today, step into the world of the Stoics. Let their wisdom guide you into something deeper than survival. Step into a life that is calm not because the world is gentle, but because your mind is strong. They remind us again and again, life won't bend to your will, but your will can shape how you meet it. You may not choose the storm, but you choose how you stand in it. Imagine for a moment that every difficulty you face, every delay, every letdown is not an enemy, but a teacher. Imagine viewing each obstacle as a gift wrapped in pain. That's the Stoic lens. Marcus Aurelius didn't just endure trouble, he looked for beauty within it. Even in chaos, there is structure. Even in sadness, there is clarity. Modern Stoic thinkers like Massimo Pigliucci echo this ancient voice, reminding us that the power to grow is always present if we are willing to listen. Can you picture yourself standing in a sunlit field, watching each of your problems drift by like soft clouds? Because that's what it feels like when your inner dialogue is clear, when you learn to speak to yourself with strength, not fear. The Stoics urge us to see hardship not as something to escape, but as something to embrace. Not because it feels good, but because it sharpens us. Each challenge is a weight, and every weight, when lifted, makes you stronger. So ask yourself, how much of your stress is actually created by you? How much comes from grasping at things you can't control? Epictetus said, "Freedom begins when we stop trying to rule the world and start governing ourselves." That means anchoring our attention to what's truly within reach: our thoughts, our actions, our choices. When we focus inward, we create peace. Like a balm on the raw edge of anxiety, reason and clarity soften the noise. And when we fixate on what others think, when we obsess over outcomes, we abandon that power. But the Stoics call us home. They invite us back to the only place where calm truly lives within. Ask yourself now, isn't it freeing to measure your worth by your own values, not the opinions of others? Isn't it powerful to know that serenity begins when you no longer chase external approval? Here lies the root of true peace. Not in perfect circumstances, but in unshakable perspective. In a quiet confidence that no storm can take away. And if you've ever felt that a small setback unraveled your whole day, if you've ever noticed how one comment, one misstep, disrupted your entire peace, the Stoics would say, that's not because of the event. It's because of how you interpreted it. Seneca taught that our suffering is often shaped more by our thoughts than by reality. So the practice is this: confront the distortion, challenge the inner narrative. Picture your mind as a tranquil pool, still, quiet, untouched by the winds above. The storms may rage, but you remain rooted. That's what the Stoics teach us. We cannot shield ourselves from every blow, but we can shield our hearts from overreaction. Part 2. From now on, are you willing to accept that your perception can shape your entire reality? That the way you frame loss, failure, or conflict can either stir the flames of anxiety or extinguish them altogether? The Stoics believed that despair grows not from events themselves, but from forgetting our power to respond. When we reclaim that power, something shifts. We begin to breathe with more intention. Each inhale becomes a quiet reminder that within us exists the strength to turn dread into direction, fear into focused resilience. Now ask yourself, when your mind gets trapped in that maze of what-ifs and worries, don't you crave calm more than anything else? The Stoics would never advise brute force against fear. Instead, they teach us to welcome it as a messenger, not a monster. What if fear isn't something to fight, but something to listen to? Something with a lesson, not a threat? Marcus Aurelius often wrote that every moment presents an opportunity, a moment to practice virtue, to remain gracious under pressure, and to develop unwavering clarity. Modern Stoic voices echo that same idea. They remind us that a few minutes of quiet reflection can shift our entire perspective. In those still moments, aren't we more likely to uncover the solutions that frantic thinking tends to bury? There's power in the pause. In that gentle silence, excitement and anxiety often look like two sides of the same coin, both waiting for us to give them shape. The moment we realize we are never truly helpless, that we have agency even in distress, something extraordinary happens. Stress begins to dissolve, and in its place, calm takes root. We stop panicking and start planning. We stop reacting and begin responding with purpose. But have you ever stopped to notice how much your environment plays into your emotional state? The Stoics were incredibly mindful about association, about who and what they allowed into their mental space. Seneca warned that negativity is infectious, that if we don't challenge harmful influences, they seep into our thoughts and rot our focus from the inside out. Think of your mental world like the air you breathe. Would you knowingly inhale toxins? Then why allow toxic thoughts, people, or media into your mind without filter? Imagine applying the same level of discernment to your emotional atmosphere. What would your life feel like if you let in only what builds you up? Calm, courage, grace, and gently close the door to anything that steals your peace. This doesn't mean ignoring pain or injustice. Not at all. It means facing reality with clear eyes, not letting it steal your inner balance. By creating intentional space around us, we build a sanctuary for our resilience to grow. And in that protected space, gloom finds no place to thrive. Let's go deeper. Have you thought about how essential it is to reflect every single day on your reasons for hope? The Stoics were adamant about this. They believed that forgetting our blessings was the gateway to dissatisfaction. Epictetus would encourage his students to begin each morning by recalling small marvels, a kind word from a friend, a moment of silence amid the rush, even just the warmth of sunlight on your face. Modern Stoic teachers take this further. They recommend keeping a gratitude journal, a short daily habit to anchor your mind in truth. Think of gratitude as sunlight. It cuts through the fog of despair. It exposes illusions of inadequacy. And as soon as you begin writing down even the tiniest things you value, doesn't your chest feel a little lighter? Doesn't the chaos soften? This practice may seem simple, even small, but its impact compounds. With consistency, it becomes a fortress, a wall that holds off the creeping doubt and stress that otherwise sneaks in unnoticed. Gratitude in Stoic thought isn't some fluffy distraction. It's a radical discipline, a refusal to ignore what's good in favor of what's missing. It's the deep choice to honor life, breath by breath, moment by moment. And so we arrive at one of the most vital shifts in the Stoic worldview, the ability to be here now. Could it be that your peace gets stolen not by what happens today, but by your fixation on yesterday or anxiety over tomorrow? The Stoics insisted that our only true power lives in the present, that the past is no longer ours, and the future is not yet promised. But right now is fully in our hands. Marcus Aurelius said we must focus only on the step right in front of us. Think of your mind like a stage. Every anxious thought about what may come or what already passed is like an extra actor wandering in, stealing attention, clouding your performance. The Stoic way is to clear that stage, to return to your single present line, to deliver it with clarity, purpose, and grace. And when we do that, something miraculous unfolds. The heavy fog of despair lifts. It no longer has space to dwell. What remains is a deep, steady joy, the kind that comes from being fully alive, fully engaged, and fully in the moment. Part 3. Be present in the now. Imagine stepping onto a stage where your mind is the set, the present moment is the spotlight, and your breath is the only script that matters. The Stoics remind us that the burdens we carry, those endless worries about what might go wrong tomorrow, or regrets about what we should have done yesterday, are like extra actors crowding the scene. They distract from the real performance, which is always unfolding right here, right now. What if you chose to show up fully in the present moment without dragging the weight of yesterday's pain or tomorrow's doubts behind you? When you commit to the task directly in front of you, with your whole self, something profound happens. The fog begins to lift. Despair fades into the background like a forgotten whisper. And what takes its place is something radiant, a deep sense of being truly alive. But let's be honest, life isn't always thrilling. Most days feel like repetition, a slow cycle of duties and routines. And yet, the Stoics saw opportunity even in the mundane. They believed that greatness isn't measured by grand gestures, but by small acts done with care. Seneca wrote that a well-lived day is not one filled with applause or spectacle, but one where every duty is met with quiet excellence. When we treat our work, even the smallest of tasks, as an extension of our integrity, stress begins to soften. A quiet sense of pride rises in its place. Think about it. When was the last time you poured your full attention into something simple, making your bed, answering a message, cleaning a room, and walked away feeling at peace, not because of the outcome, but because of the presence you brought into the process? The Stoics understood this. Contentment doesn't come from chasing novelty or stimulation, but from showing up with honesty and intention. When you adopt this lens, every moment becomes sacred, and despair has no room to take root. Now, let's address something we all do, even if we don't admit it. We compare. We scroll, we glance, we measure. We take the highlight reel of someone else's life and contrast it with the behind the scenes of our own. And what does that leave us with? Envy, doubt, restlessness. The Stoics warned against this very trap. Epictetus compared these comparisons to chaining ourselves to illusions enslaving our peace, to images that don't belong to us. But you don't have to live that way. What if you measured your growth not by someone else's timeline, but by your own? By the person you were yesterday? That shift changes everything. Suddenly, the pressure lifts. You realize that your path, your rhythm, your pace here, entirely your own. There's a freedom in that. A freedom that starves negativity and leaves no space for insecurity to grow. Are you willing to celebrate your wins, no matter how small? The Stoics call this the fruit of self-reliance and unshakable confidence, rooted in progress, not perfection. Every step forward, no matter how modest, becomes a reason to believe in yourself again. But even when we stop comparing, another trap waits expectation. Have you noticed how easily it becomes the source of your suffering? You expect someone to behave a certain way. You expect success to arrive on your schedule. You expect life to follow your script. And when it doesn't, what happens? Disappointment, frustration, stress. Seneca taught that the Stoic does not cling to rigid expectations. Instead, they anchor their goals in virtue, not outcomes, because results are fickle, but your values, those are within your control. Think of your mindset like a musical instrument. It only plays in tune when you stop trying to control every note life throws at you and instead focus on how you respond to the melody. Isn't that a more beautiful way to live? Part 4: Peace through character, mortality, and adversity. Real relief doesn't come from the outside, not from the number in your bank account, nor the comments on your latest post. It comes from within, from character, from the silent but powerful commitment to show up each day as someone just a bit more honest, more compassionate, more grounded than the day before. This kind of commitment doesn't scream for recognition. It builds slowly, moment by moment, like stone laid upon stone, and it becomes the foundation of peace. When your eyes stop chasing outcomes, when the obsession with control fades, the soul can finally breathe. You no longer serve the shifting gods of money, fame, or approval. Instead, you walk toward a different kind of wealth, one that can't be taken, one that whispers, "You are enough," right here, right now. Can you feel how steady life becomes when the goal is no longer perfection but presence? No longer applause but integrity? The Stoics didn't promise a life without storms. They simply trained their minds to sail through them. But what about the fear most people quietly carry every day, the fear of death? It creeps in during sleepless nights and quiet car rides, doesn't it? The Stoics didn't avoid it. They faced it head on. Not morbidly, not with dread, but with clarity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, often death is not to be feared. It is nature's rhythm, a reminder that every breath is a gift, not a given. What if, instead of being paralyzed by the thought of your end, you used it to sharpen your appreciation of now? Every moment, the warmth of your coffee, the voice of someone you love, the wind brushing your skin becomes more vivid when you understand it won't last forever. Death, then, isn't an enemy. It's a guide. It points us back to life, not in panic but in purpose. Now let's talk about hardship. How often do we label pain as failure or struggle as punishment? The Stoics had a different view. They saw adversity as a mentor, not one who coddles, but one who refines. One who strips away the unnecessary and reveals what truly matters. Epictetus was born into slavery and yet became one of the wisest voices in philosophy. How? Because he didn't resist hardship. He didn't curse his fate. He transformed it. He turned wounds into wisdom. Isn't there something deeply liberating in that idea? That what's challenging you right now, that frustration, that setback, could be the very thing shaping your strength. You don't have to welcome the pain, but you can walk through it with dignity. You can let it deepen you. And when you do, you'll look back and realize, that moment I almost broke, that was the moment I built something unshakable. But let's go even deeper. What if the real weight on your shoulders isn't the problem itself, but your resistance to it? The Stoics urge us to stop wrestling with what already is, to stop pouring our energy into wishing the past were different. Marcus Aurelius wrote of this gentle wisdom to accept with grace what life brings, and from that clarity, to act with calm power. Think about it, how much stress comes not from reality, but from our refusal to meet it as it is. What if acceptance isn't weakness, but wisdom? What if it frees up all the energy we've been wasting on regret and rechannel it into meaningful action? Because when we stop fighting the tide, we can start moving with it and perhaps even begin to steer. Part 5. The power of stillness and small choices. There's a quiet strength that comes when we stop wrestling with regret. When we stop wishing the past had played out differently and instead whisper to ourselves, "This is where I begin." That's when healing finally has room to grow. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that the doorway to peace only opens when we stop clinging to what can't be changed. In that release, contentment doesn't just appear, it rises like the long-awaited light after a restless night. Have you ever wondered whether you've given yourself enough room for silence? Not silence as absence, but as sanctuary. A break from the noise, a return to your center. In a world that constantly bombards us with pings and demands, the Stoics treasured silence as a daily practice. Seneca believed that solitude, when embraced wisely, wasn't isolation, but alignment. A moment to tune out the world so that we might finally hear ourselves again. Picture yourself, even for 5 minutes, closing your eyes, unplugging from everything external, and breathing into your own values. It's not an escape, it's an act of purification. A way to clear the fog of distraction and let your thoughts shine with the clarity they were always capable of. And in that sacred, quiet anxiety finds no place to cling. Sadness loses its echo. All that remains is a calm presence, guiding you inward, reminding you of what matters. But silence alone is not the answer. The Stoics understood that the body and mind are inseparable, that neglecting one will always imbalance the other. Marcus Aurelius frequently spoke of harmony not just of thought, but of life itself. Movement, sleep, breath, nourishment. These aren't luxuries, they're disciplines. To care for the body was to respect the vessel of the soul. So the next time you stretch gently at sunrise, or take a slow evening walk, know that it's not just health, it's philosophy in motion. With each mindful step, you loosen the knots of tension. You soften the storm inside. You ground yourself in patience, in clarity, And from that steadiness, emotional resilience flows. The Stoics would see that not as vanity, but as your sacred responsibility to care for this brief, miraculous existence you've been given. Have you felt lost lately, unsure of your path, and surrounded by the fog of self-doubt? The Stoics remind us that uncertainty is not failure. It is a beginning. Seneca called learning a lifelong duty, and curiosity the torch we carry through dark corridors. In your questions, there is movement. In your setbacks, there is guidance. Every detour is an invitation to deepen your understanding. So instead of fearing confusion, try greeting it. Sit with it. Let it point the way. Every answer you seek will only come after that quiet moment of inquiry. The more you allow yourself to grow, to shift, to explore, the more the shadows of uncertainty dissolve into light. This is how we move slowly, deliberately toward a life of purpose and serenity. And finally, ask yourself this: are you measuring this moment by the weight of the past? Are you trapped in the longing for something that once was, so much so that you can no longer feel what is? The Stoics warned against nostalgia that shackles. Epicurus once said that longing for the past is like turning your back on the sunrise just to chase a memory of twilight. So stand still for a moment. Let the present wash over you. Let it remind you that this right now was the only place where joy can be felt, where peace can be nurtured, and where your life is truly lived. Part 6. The Calm Within Simplicity. Have you ever noticed how nostalgia can cloud your present joy? It's easy to become so attached to the memory of what once was that we forget to open ourselves to what could be. The Stoics urge us to gently lift our eyes from the fog of the past, not in denial, but in quiet acceptance. They believe that true peace begins the moment we stop clinging to old regrets and begin embracing the silent miracles of today. It's not about erasing your history. It's about releasing your grip on what no longer serves you, so you can meet this moment with fresh eyes and an open heart. Stress often takes root when we carry yesterday's burdens into today's possibilities. But once you allow the past to rest, the present begins to bloom with quiet revelations. Every breath becomes a chance to begin again, lighter and wiser. Have you ever considered how much clarity comes from having a purpose? The Stoics didn't believe in wandering aimlessly through life. They were deeply committed to living with intention. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on aligning his daily actions with a larger mission rooted in virtue, not vanity. When your life is anchored in something greater than comfort or approval, every task takes on meaning. Even the mundane begins to shine when it serves a higher aim. Picture this. You wake each day not in confusion or chaos, but with a sense of direction. Whether you're sweeping the floor or writing a letter, your actions contribute to a vision that's truly yours. That sense of purpose becomes your compass. It silences the noise, shields you from despair, and gives you the strength to carry on when life turns heavy. In this pursuit, even depression loses its footing. Because when you know why you exist, you know where to place your energy. Now ask yourself, do your daily habits bring you closer to that sense of inner peace, or do they drag you further away? The Stoics were masters of discipline. Seneca advised building your character not through grand gestures, but through repeated acts of virtue. It's not about perfection, but persistence. When you commit to a simple morning reflection or pause to breathe mindfully before a task, you're reinforcing a foundation that no storm can shake. Think of your routine as a form of training, not for success in the world's eyes, but for stability in your own soul. Each small act, when done with awareness, paints a stroke on the canvas of your resilience. Over time, these choices accumulate into a quiet strength. You stop reacting and start responding. You build a calm fortress brick by mindful brick where stress can knock but never enter. But how often do we sabotage that peace by chasing more? More money, more status, more things we think will fill the void. The Stoics saw this trap clearly. Epictetus warned that craving leads to suffering, not because desires are bad, but because they are endless. There's always another thing to want, another summit to climb. Yet the most powerful liberation comes when we stop asking, "What can I gain?" and start asking, "What can I let go of?" Can you imagine the lightness of needing less? Of looking around and realizing that you already have enough? That your worth isn't measured by your possessions, but by your ability to live in harmony with your values. The Stoic path doesn't promise glamour. It promises grace. It doesn't offer instant pleasure, but it does offer lasting freedom. And what about forgiveness? Do you find yourself clenching onto resentment like a shield, thinking it protects you from being hurt again? The Stoics understood that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and hoping someone else suffers. Seneca believed that people often act out of ignorance, not malice. And so, to forgive is not to excuse, but to unburden yourself. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's clarity. It's the conscious choice to free your mind from the chains of bitterness and make room for peace. When you let go of resentment, your thoughts flow lighter, your sleep becomes deeper, your heart beats calmer, you become less reactive, more grounded, and in that inner stillness, life becomes more bearable, even beautiful. Part 7. Forgiveness, Fortitude, and Inner Freedom. Have you ever felt the quiet weight of a grudge, lingering like a shadow in the corners of your peace? The Stoics teach that forgiveness is not a favor to the person who wronged you, but a liberation for yourself. They saw resentment not as a sign of justice, but as a heavy chain, clamped around your own heart, slowly draining your energy with each passing day. Seneca once observed that when we recognize another's flaws as echoes of our shared human vulnerability, bitterness begins to dissolve. We no longer carry the illusion that anger is strength. Instead, we find that letting go is an act of courage. When you pause to reflect, can you not feel the burden ease the moment you release someone from the prison of your mind? Forgiveness does not mean we erase wrongdoing or dismiss pain. It means we choose to reclaim control over our emotional space. It means refusing to rent your mind out to someone who brings you suffering. The Stoics saw this choice as a form of self-compassion, a way to preserve clarity and peace in the face of harm. When you let go of resentment, depression loses its grip, because it can no longer feed on past pain. Now ask yourself, how often do you suffer more from the anticipation of pain than from pain itself? The Stoics named this very human pattern premeditatio malorumpha, thoughtful contemplation of potential misfortunes, but not to paralyze you with fear. On the contrary, they believe that by calmly rehearsing what might go wrong, you take the sting out of surprise. Marcus Aurelius wrote that imagining worst-case scenarios with composure and clarity makes us more grateful for what we already have, and less shaken if hardship arrives. Can you see how that softens the grip of anxiety? Instead of panic, we prepare. Instead of avoiding discomfort, we face it with dignity. And when we do, we discover something remarkable. We become less fragile, more resilient, and far more anchored. This practice doesn't mean living in fear of what could go wrong. It means building the strength to meet life head-on, whatever it brings. It's like training your mind the way a sailor prepares for stormy seas, not because the storm is certain, but because peace lies in readiness. And what of your sense of self? Have you placed it in the hands of others? Do you find your joy rising and falling based on someone's comment or silence? The Stoics warned against this deeply common trap. Epictetus urged us to derive our worth not from approval, but from character. Imagine a sculptor who continues to shape her creation with purpose, regardless of who walks by and scoffs. Her art is not for applause, it's for truth. Can you live like that? Can you continue doing what is right, even when no one claps? When your identity becomes rooted in conscience and clarity, you stop chasing validation. You start living from within. And when that happens, external judgments no longer shake you. Sorrow loses its foundation. Stress cannot control what it cannot reach. This is the shield of self-possession. A quiet, unwavering force that allows you to walk forward in life calm, intentional, and undisturbed. But to maintain this strength, you must also slow down. Have you noticed how rushing through life blurs the lessons hidden in each moment? Marcus Aurelius encouraged stillness, not the absence of movement, but the presence of mindfulness in every motion. To act slowly, with care, is to act with wisdom. When we're constantly hurrying, we make room for chaos. We lose the thread of meaning that connects our days. But when we breathe between steps, we begin to see, we begin to feel. And from that space, the mind grows clear and the heart steady. So today, as you move through your responsibilities, choose presence. Choose to forgive where bitterness lingers. Choose to prepare where fear whispers. And above all, choose to live from the still center of your own truth. The Stoics remind you it's not the world outside that determines our peace. It's how we carry it within. Part 8. Slowness, Virtue, and the Inner Fortress. Have you ever noticed how rushing through life often leaves you more exhausted, yet less fulfilled? The Stoics believed that in a world consumed by haste, choosing to slow down isn't weakness, it's wisdom in motion. By resisting the pull of instant gratification and pausing long enough to think clearly, we don't just delay decisions, we elevate them. That deliberate slowness opens a gate to understanding, to clarity, and to peace. When your mind is allowed to breathe, it finds strength. And in that space of stillness, anxiety has nowhere to hide. A modern Stoic might say that taking your time is an act of quiet rebellion. It's how you reclaim your attention in an age where everything begs to steal it. By moving with intention, you reinforce the boundaries of your mental sanctuary. Chaos cannot shake a mind that is grounded. Like a fortress built not in haste but stone by stone, your calm becomes impenetrable. Now think about this. What is your anchor when life spins you in 1,000 directions? For the Stoics, that anchor was always virtue. Not some abstract ideal, but the practical, personal integrity you live by every day. Seneca described virtue as the bedrock of the soul. It keeps you steady through success and failure, praise and blame. Because when your actions are aligned with your values, you don't need to look outside for validation. You feel it inside, a quiet sense of rightness. Can you feel how different that is from chasing approval? How light you become when your compass isn't swinging towards someone else's expectations? When your days are measured not by accolades, but by the sincerity of your effort, stress fades. Shame and guilt, those heavy weights we often carry, lose their grip when we know in our hearts that we've acted with honesty and care. That's the kind of internal order the Stoics promised. A self rooted so deeply in truth that the winds of chaos can't touch it. And yet life still brings its trials. Heartbreak, rejection, failure, they come for all of us. But the Stoics never taught us to avoid pain. They taught us to alchemize it, to turn it into wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote that nature equips us to endure and learn, not to crumble and retreat. Can you imagine that? Pain not as punishment, but as a mentor. Every hardship a hidden lesson. Every tear a chance to soften your judgment of others and grow in compassion. What if the sorrow you feel now becomes the strength you offer someone else one day? What if your wounds help someone else feel less alone? The Stoics believed in that transformation from grief to growth, from setback to service. Because in the tapestry of life, sorrow is not a dark stain. It's a deeper hue that makes the whole picture richer. You are not broken by hardship. You are being refined. And amid it all, don't forget to laugh. Yes, laugh. The Stoics were not grim philosophers. They understood that sometimes the most powerful release from despair is not another serious thought, but a moment of sincere, humble laughter. Seneca even suggested that many of our so-called catastrophes are just absurdities in disguise. Have you ever caught yourself spiraling over a worry, only to realize later how exaggerated it was? That chuckle you let out, that's healing. That's resilience wearing a smile. Laughter doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've accepted life's quirks and decided to dance with them. That levity becomes your shield, a kind of armor that doesn't harden you, it lightens you. Stress has no foothold in a spirit that knows how to laugh kindly at itself. And here's where discipline enters the story, not as a strict rule, but as a framework of peace. Epictetus taught that discipline is the foundation for inner freedom. Without it, your emotions drive the wheel. With it, you steer with purpose. Can you feel how empowering it is to have rituals that nourish you? To wake up knowing your day already holds structure, strength, and meaning? Discipline isn't about rigidity. It's about rhythm. A rhythm that your mind begins to trust. Even when the outside world shakes, you stay steady because your habits are solid. Your choices are deliberate, and your path, though slow, is sure. That's how the Stoic builds a resilient mind. Not overnight, not through some flash of motivation, but through consistency. Quiet, patient, unshakable. Part 9. The Strength of Simplicity and Steady Progress. If you pause and reflect on the rhythms of your own life, can you see how even the smallest measure of consistency has the power to shield you from the roller coaster of impulsive urges? In the Stoic tradition, discipline isn't about rigidity. It's about creating a dependable framework that nurtures both peace and potential. Within that quiet structure, you begin to notice something remarkable. The chaos that once rattled you starts to lose its grip. Suddenly, your mind isn't a battlefield of conflict, but a sanctuary of focus. And in this sanctuary, even the shadows of stress and creeping despair struggle to find a place to hide. Now let's turn to one of the most overlooked habits that quietly intensifies our inner suffering: the urge to complain. The Stoics believed that every time we indulge in complaint, we tighten the chains of our own misery. They weren't dismissive of pain, but they refused to let pain become the narrator of their lives. Marcus Aurelius taught that we must look to reason and ethics for solutions, not wallow in self-pity. Imagine the doors we could open if we spent less time voicing our grievances and more time turning the handle of purposeful action. In refusing to indulge the reflex to whine, we redirect our energy toward growth. We begin to reclaim the mental territory that sorrow had once claimed. Could it be that stress often takes root not in our challenges, but in the way we keep rehearsing them with bitter repetition? Acknowledging this is the first step to transformation. When we uproot the habit of complaint, we plant new seeds of acceptance, of motion, of quiet power. Now, ask yourself this: are your ambitions lifting you, or are they exhausting you? The Stoics warn us against overextending ourselves in the name of grand achievement. Seneca illustrated this beautifully when he said that unmeasured striving leads not to glory, but to collapse. When we carry ambition without wisdom, we carry a boulder that eventually breaks our spirit. Picture how much richer life becomes when you allow space to breathe, space to celebrate, space to simply be. Is there not relief in realizing that slow, steady steps taken with intention can surpass impatient leaps? A Stoic journey doesn't sprint, it endures. It moves with clarity, not panic. And because of that, depression finds little traction, and stress finds little fuel. In that same spirit of endurance, consider this: what if every moment was a teacher? What if every interaction, every glance, every challenge, every silence carried a lesson? The Stoics believed that wisdom was not confined to books or classrooms. Epictetus taught that we learn through nature, through people, through the ordinary. A simple conversation with a stranger might reveal something profound about patience, about grace. And when we begin to see the world through this lens of curiosity, we realize we are never alone with our burdens. We are always surrounded by teachings subtle, sacred, instructive. In that light, stress softens, and depression, which thrives in closed and narrow thinking, loses its grip. With every realization comes a quiet fortification. Each insight adds another brick to the mental foundation of a well-lived life. But here's another truth the Stoics reveal. Overthinking is one of the greatest enemies of peace. When we ruminate, when we spiral into the imagined chaos of future disasters, we lose sight of the simplicity in front of us. Marcus Aurelius encouraged us to return to essence, strip away unnecessary speculation. Do you see how often your anxiety is made of things that haven't happened and may never happen? Mental clarity to the Stoics means shedding the weight of what ifs and stepping into what is. By addressing the core issue, plainly and calmly, we leave no room for confusion to grow. And in that clarity, action becomes easier. Simplicity becomes strength. And the mind once tangled in loops of fear finds a calm, confident way forward. So ask yourself, are you willing to see your obstacles for what they are, not monsters, but moments? Not catastrophes, but challenges waiting for a clear mind to respond? Because that shift, that clarity, could change everything. Part 10. The final victory is within. Have you ever considered that the deepest triumph over anxiety or despair might not be found in conquering the world, but in conquering your own mind? The Stoics understood something powerful, something timeless. They knew that the greatest battles are not won with noise or force, but with clarity of thought and strength of character. Marcus Aurelius wrote not about controlling the chaos around him, but mastering the response within him. Seneca called it the calm harbor, a place we can carry within us, no matter how wild the waves of life may become. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture that inner harbor. Is it quiet? Is it still? Can you feel the peace waiting there, just beneath the surface of your daily worries? You see, this is the essence of Stoic wisdom. That peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you build, moment by moment, thought by thought, action by action. In a world that demands instant reactions and constant attention, how powerful is it to pause, breathe, and choose your response with intention? Modern Stoic thinkers echo this truth. They remind us that while we may not have control over every storm, we always have the power to guide our sail. Your emotional clarity, your moral compass, your practiced calm, these are not decorations of philosophy, they are tools. And when used daily, they forge a state of mind that is nearly unshakable. Now ask yourself, what if the real reward of Stoicism isn't avoiding difficulty, but facing it with grace? What if the true prize is waking up tomorrow, not just to another day, but to a renewed sense of ownership over your mind, your choices, your life? Imagine yourself walking through your day with quiet confidence. When setbacks arise, they don't throw you. When someone tries to provoke you, they don't reach you. Because deep down, you know who you are. You've trained your mind to stand tall even when the world feels unsteady. This is what the Stoics called true freedom. A kind of freedom that doesn't rely on perfect conditions or constant validation. It's the freedom of someone who no longer dances to the rhythm of fear, anger, or doubt, but to the rhythm of reason. So, are you ready to claim that freedom? To step fully into the present with eyes wide open and a heart fortified by virtue? If you are, then welcome to the Stoic path, not as an abstract idea, but as a lived truth, a quiet revolution that starts within you and radiates outward. Because the truth is, stress and sorrow may visit you, but they don't get to live in you. Not anymore. And that, my friend, is not just philosophy. That is power. Part 11. Final reflection and farewell. Unwavering strength that has always been yours. Not borrowed, not granted by anyone else, but quietly waiting within you, like a fire that never dies, only needs tending. The Stoics didn't just remind us of this strength, they showed us how to reclaim it. So the question now is, are you ready? Are you ready to rise each morning with that same quiet resolve? To meet the day not with fear, but with clarity. To no longer be shackled by anxiety, but to move with calm intention. Every sunrise is not just another morning, it's another invitation, another opportunity to walk freely, to think clearly, to act with purpose. Let these teachings settle in your heart like roots sinking into steady soil. Let them be more than words let them become the structure of your daily life. Because when you do, something remarkable happens. The shadows begin to lift. The noise fades. And in its place, a deeper rhythm, a life not just lived but crafted, with resilience that does not waver, with peace that does not fade. This is your path. Not one you must chase, but one you awaken to fully present, fiercely calm and quietly powerful. Let the Stoic flame guide you. You are stronger than you've been told. And this journey, it's only just beginning.